Let's take a more detailed look now at this Polyphony designed GT wheel. Now, the first thing I'm sure a lot of you are thinking when you see this is, doesn't it look exactly the same as the Thrustmaster one? Yes, it does look very similar. There are some differences there, obviously, but you can see how the Polyphony design has kind of carried across, and obviously they have very strict regulations when it comes to what a licensed wheel needs to look like to be licensed for Gran Turismo, which is the reason why they look quite similar. So I just wanted to explain that. Now, the first impression that I have of this wheel is obviously it is a lot cheaper than the Fanatec wheels that a lot of people will be used to. So we've got a selection of wheels beside me here from the various different ranges from the Podium series, which is the Porsche 911 GT3R wheel. Now, obviously you can see this wheel is way, way, way nicer than what we have here. But to put it in perspective, this wheel only costs $50 less than the wheel, the base, and the pedals all combined. So, you know, it is important to have that perspective. Obviously, we're not comparing it against something that costs that much money. If we step down the range to something like a Club Sport wheel, again, you can see this has got the nice Alcantara. It's got the genuine carbon fiber on the front as well, whereas this is all plastic. The buttons do feel a little bit nicer on this as well, although it's not a massive difference. If we step down to the Csl Elite range, something like the McLaren GT3, this is definitely a lot closer, very similar rubber grip. And one thing I do want to highlight here is that Tom has been using this wheel extensively for the better part of, will be well over 6 months now, and it's got absolutely no wear and tear on it whatsoever. It still looks pretty much like brand new, other than a few little scratches from, you know, being moved around between the studio and his house. But yeah, in terms of from general usage, it's worn very, very well. So I would expect the same levels of durability from this wheel as well. But then if we go down to the WRC wheel for comparison, this is much more similar in terms of quality. So we do still have a metal face here. We do still have Alcantara, but the buttons are about the same quality. We do have the snap dome shifters on this wheel as well, which we don't have on the GT wheel. So look, it's probably still a small step down in quality from this wheel, I would say. It's kind of like a sub-range to the Csl Elite range, I would say. But having said that, the fit and finish, the quality does still feel good. It just feels that little bit cheaper than the other Fanatec wheels which are on the market currently. So, you know, if you do own other wheels, I just wanted to, you know, make that reference so that you know, kind of knew what to expect from this one. But if this is your only wheel, if you're stepping into the ecosystem for the very first time, then I don't think anybody's going to be disappointed with the quality, particularly for the price. So, you know, nice plastic construction. We do have the interchangeable quick release here as well. We do have the simplified one on there by default, and we'll show you how that works when we get up on the rig in a moment. But you can swap that out for the metal quick release on here should you wish to do so. This is a bit of a strange one because I've seen a lot of people complain about creaking and groaning and, you know, problems with the simplified quick release. Personally, I haven't had any issues with it at all, neither has Tom. So we've actually been recommending that people don't bother to upgrade to the metal quick release, but a lot of people disagree with me on that as well. So read around, have a look at experiences and make your own decision on that one. And that kind of just goes to highlight the importance of getting multiple opinions on these kinds of things. But given that this wheel is intended to be used with a PS4 or PS5, probably the best point of reference that I can give you for something that you probably already own is actually the DualSense controller that comes with your PlayStation. Very, very similar quality in terms of the plastics and just the overall fit and finish and feel of the module itself. So yeah, if you own one of these, then the quality that you're getting here is about the same. And that again makes sense given that this is designed by Polyphony, which is a subsidiary of Sony. So yeah, there you go. So in terms of the quality, I think given again the price point and all the other things that we're getting included in the kit, this is not going to be a disappointment to anybody. And of course, you do have the option of upgrading to different wheels as well, should you wish to do so. So for me personally, I'm glad that they've kind of gone with a more entry-level wheel and kept the price of the overall kit down so the barrier to entry is lower, rather than forcing you to pay more for a more expensive wheel when people may not want that. So yeah, I think that this is good for what you're paying for the overall product. But let's hone in a little bit more on the actual features here. So you can see we've got 4 5-way switches here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then push down. And that isn't fully implemented yet. We're going to see the full integration with Gran Turismo 7. So we'll have a lot more information to speak about once the game is released or close to release, hopefully. But otherwise, we've got a very familiar layout here with all your standard PlayStation buttons. We've got our OLED display on here as well, which gives us access to the tuning menu as well as telemetry. We'll look at that in more detail and how that integrates with the system once we're up and driving. We've got our tuning menu button here as well, which allows us to make on-the-fly changes to our force feedback, braking force, and so forth. And then hidden away just up the top here as well is what they're calling a Rev Stripe. So I'm assuming at this point that it's some sort of RGB LED strip, that you can configure somehow. So we'll look at that when we get up and running in the software as well. But look, overall, that's pretty much all there is to say about it. Interchangeable quick release, as we mentioned. The shifters don't have a overly remarkable feel to them. You know, they're just a spring-loaded mechanism with a micro switch in there. So there's no neodymium magnets in there or anything like that to improve the shifter feel. And if you compare it to something like the McLaren wheel, for example, that's got a much more positive, intentional click to it than what we have with this wheel. But I'm sure somebody will come up with some sort of a magnetic mod add-on, something 3D printed, no doubt, that will bolt onto the back here and, you know, make these feel a lot better than they do out of the box. But there's certainly no problem with it. And again, coming from a game controller, you're certainly going to be happy with this if you're driving with it. So yeah, no problems there at all. Otherwise, we've got our PlayStation button, we've got our L buttons, R buttons, and we've got our multi-directional switch here as well, which is just a digital pad, just like what we would have on our controller up here. Now, ergonomically, I think it's quite an intelligent design as well, being 280 millimeters, nice and versatile. Actually the same diameter as the Asher racing wheel that I've been using for all of my GT3 racing recently. I find the 270 mil that we get with the Fanatec Formula wheels is a little bit narrow for some people. It suits quite well to Formula 1 or Formula style driving, but GT3s, it can be a little bit on the twitchy side, particularly with a stronger direct drive wheelbase. So 280 millimeter, I think, is a good middle ground, and this wheel is gonna suit the majority of different driving styles. And the reason I mentioned I prefer to have a round bottom is simply because if you're drifting and you need to be able to slide the wheel through your hands without your hands banging around, then that can make a little bit of a difference there. But the D shape is very, very subtle, and yeah, we'll comment on it more when we get up and driving in just a moment. But look, otherwise, I'm happy with it.